Hey guys, hidden deep in the desert beyond the white sands lies a forgotten cave, a place of unimaginable treasure and deadly secrets. For generations, the Yaqui people guarded this sacred mountain, a cavern filled with gold, stolen artifacts, and the bodies of long-dead Spanish conquistadors. A prisoner spent 30 years behind bars holding on to this secret that could make a man richer than kings, until he shared it with a 15-year-old boy who shared it with us. Stay tuned, because this is the real story of the Yaqui Treasure Cave and the dark mystery still beneath the desert sands. Leave a comment and let me know what you think of this story, or if you have any more insights to it. And don't forget to mash that like button. I don't know if it helps me with YouTube or not, but it sure makes me feel better.
Terry Carter out on the run, chasing the myths underneath the sun, digging up truth where the past still breathes, lost in the ruins where legends don't leave.
In 1937, I lived in Florence, Arizona, with my parents. My father was the superintendent of the Arizona State Prison Farms. Our home was on one of the prison farms 10 miles east of Florence, isolated from the main penitentiary. It was a lonely, vast desert stretching endlessly in all directions. As part of my father's job, we were allowed a prison trustee, a convict assigned to help with household chores. The man we got was Yaqui. That wasn't his real name. He never revealed his Indian name or any other name that authorities could trace. Sometimes he whispered his Indian name to me, but it was unfamiliar, and I don't remember it now. Yaqui was quiet, reserved, and obedient, a man who had spent nearly 30 years in prison. His crime? He had killed his wife. But the story wasn't so simple. Yaqui had married a woman from another tribe. When she was accused of being unfaithful, the elders pressured him to follow their custom. With no choice, he slit her throat. He later told me he didn't believe in the custom. He wasn't a savage. He regretted it deeply. But by the time he understood the weight of his actions, it was too late. The white man's law had sentenced him to life in prison, and he accepted his fate. For 2 years, Yaqui and I spent a lot of time together. I was young, only 15 years old, and full of adventure. I loved exploring the desert and finding Indian artifacts. Yaqui noticed. He said I reminded him of himself as a young man. And then one day he told me a story that would change my life. The legend of the lost treasure. Yaquis people, the Yaquis had a secret. A hidden place in a head-shaped mountain with a spring on it. A place of power, mystery, and wealth beyond imagination. He was just a boy when his grandfather took him there. It was far away, across the border from Chihuahua, Mexico. A journey that took 3 days to the white sands of New Mexico. They traveled on horseback, moving only at night, avoiding settlements and roads. For days, they rode through desert and white sands, until finally, it appeared. A hat-shaped mountain, standing away in the vast emptiness. This, his grandfather told him, is where our power is. At the base of the mountain was a hidden entrance. Inside was a massive cavern filled with the artifacts, weapons, and sacred items of the Yaquis. It was also filled with gold and treasure stolen from other tribes, loot taken in past battles. And then his grandfather gave him a warning. This place is cursed. Yaqui was only allowed to look inside from above, never to enter. He peered down into the darkness. He could see shapes, objects glittering in the dim light. And in the shadows, something more. The skeletons of the past. Spaniards. The devils who had tried to take the treasure long ago. They lay where they had fallen, still dressed in their armor, their bodies preserved by the dry desert air. His grandfather forbade him from ever returning. This place was to be left alone. But years later, Yaqui went back. The robbery that changed everything. By then, Yaqui was a man, and he was part of a heist that would go horribly wrong. A group of Yaquis had struck a deal with a Catholic priest. They were going to return treasures stolen from the mountain back to the church, or so they thought. The plan was simple: raid the sacred site, take the gold and religious artifacts, and bring them back to the priest in Chihuahua. The priest promised protection. He said the church would forgive them. The stolen wealth would be used to buy their salvation. But the priest had lied. As they traveled back with the loot, disaster struck. The wagons broke down. Pack mules were lost. Then came the worst part. They were ambushed. By who? Yaqui never knew, but bullets tore through their ranks. Some of their own were gunned down in the desert. In a panic, they returned to the mountain. They didn't have time to open the entrance completely. Instead, they dumped the treasure inside, piling the gold, religious artifacts, and even a life-size Christ statue into the cavern. Then they sealed it back up, covering the entrance with stones. Yaqui and a few others barely escaped with their lives. They fled in separate directions, vowing never to return. By the time Yaqui made it back to Chihuahua, everything had fallen apart. The priest had vanished. Another group, disguised with an identical wagon, had been massacred in Skeleton Canyon. When their bodies were found, a map was discovered on one of the corpses. It showed the location of the treasure mountain. The map was taken to the bank of Douglas, Arizona, where it remained for years. Treasure hunters searched for the hat-shaped mountain with a spring, but none were ever found. The man who knew too much, Yaqui, never went back. By the time he told me this story, he had nothing left. No money, no family, just the memories of a life lost. I asked him if he'd take me there. He agreed, but refused to dig or enter the cave. The spirits are watching, he told me. I can show you where it is, but I will not step inside. My father never would let me take him up on his offer. And Yaqui, he spent the rest of his days as a prisoner. He never caused trouble, never asked for anything, just lived out his sentence, waiting for time to claim him. And the treasure? It may still be there, buried beneath the desert sun, hidden inside a forgotten hat-shaped mountain with a spring, waiting for someone brave enough to claim its cursed wealth. And with that said, that's a wrap.
Terry Carter out on the run.